Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. It is 1 o'clock on the dot, so we're going to get started here in just a second. We'll let folks get signed in, get situated, and then we're going to dive right in. Okay, looks like most of our folks are signed in. So welcome to today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to have a good discussion today on why duct sealing is considered an essential service. We've broken it down into four main reasons why this service should be included with every homeowner service you provide, right? So today, essential business means a lot of different things. So we're kind of doing a play on that, and we want to talk about why duct sealing should be considered an essential service. And my slides are not advancing. I apologize. There we go. So just to give you a quick overview of the agenda today, we're going to look at how COVID has impacted our industry and specifically how it affects duct sealing. They're going to talk about the HVAC industry in general being considered an essential business, essential service. We'll look at the different types of ductwork that are available across the country. And then we're going to talk quite a bit about why duct sealing is so important. We'll take a deep dive into the different ways you can approach duct sealing. What are the different practices available for sealing up ductwork? And then we'll talk a little bit about the benefits of duct sealing for your business. By the end of our discussion today, we will reserve about 10, 15 minutes or so for your questions and our answers. So let's dive right in. With us today, I'm really excited to introduce to you guys a gentleman named Jeff Howard. And Jeff will tell you a little bit about himself, where he's from, what he does. And Jeff, if you would take it away, tell him about yourself.
Thanks, Tracy. Yep, as Tracy mentioned, I am Jeff Howard, work with Williams Comfort Air, and we are located in 3 different cities: Indianapolis, Louisville, Kentucky, and also Cincinnati, Ohio, and surrounding areas. And we do HVAC and plumbing services. I've been in the field 15 years, studying home performance for the last 10, and have an engineering background prior to being in the field.
Very good. Yeah, Jeff and Jeff's company are one of our most engaged dealers. We love working with them. They're nearby, so that always creates lots of good advantages for us to work very closely together. So real excited to have Jeff with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Tracy Martin. I'm the Director of Dealer Development here at Aeroseal. So I have the pleasure of working with all of our residential dealers across the network, which would be just under 800 dealers across the United States and Canada. So I stay nice and busy, and I really enjoy working with our customers. All right, so COVID. It's hard to attend a webinar or a discussion these days without it finding a way to enter the conversation. COVID has certainly shifted the landscape in every way, every direction we look, it seems. But if we make it relevant to what we're talking about today, homeowners are just stuck inside so much more than they were before. And before COVID, homeowners were already, on average, spending about 90% of their time indoors. Some of the numbers I've seen are 97 to 100% of their time is being spent indoors. And so that's forcing homeowners to take a closer look at their home, right? They may have not noticed so many things previously, or maybe they just didn't have to put up with those things because they weren't at home as much as we all are now. So it's putting a much bigger value on things like comfort. So more time indoors means, you know, you're more sensitive to how uncomfortable your home might be, or how much you have to run a fan to keep up with how hot it is outside. And so we're just more tuned into those pain points in our homes now, more so than ever before. And then on top of that, you turn on the TV and you can't get away from the media talking about the significance of health and air quality issues and all things that relate to COVID. And then you go online and it's the same thing there. A lot of what you're finding online, be it on Facebook or Twitter or whatever your platform of preference is, there's a lot of conversation, a lot of talk and attention about COVID and health-related issues. So not only comfort, but we're also, in the light of COVID, all of us are so much more concerned about our health these days. So I think it has homeowners really starting to think about and question the air around them and what they're breathing. So when you're talking about our industry, which is tangential to HVAC, right? We work mostly with HVAC companies. It's not just about going out and installing new systems. We have to look at the bigger picture and consider so much more than just replacing a system. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. So HVAC is considered an essential service. And if you break down what the acronym stands for, right, we're going to do that in just a second. But we're going to give you a quick history lesson about HVAC. Because it is so much more than just the 4 letters that it stands for. So some fun facts. Schools have summer breaks because air conditioning didn't always exist. And so it was, it's too hot and too uncomfortable to pay attention during class. And it was common for some employers to even take off summer months because of the hotter temperatures. You look at the movies and the summer blockbusters, those were a thing, and there was kind of a marketing play that came into it because movies, or theaters, I mean, had air conditioning. So come check out the summer blockbuster and take advantage of the cool, often freezing movie theater, right? And then there's all kinds of studies that reveal the relationship between productivity and really comfort. We could say productivity in HVAC, but what we're really talking about is the more comfortable we are, the more productive we tend to be. We get hot, we get cold, our productivity tanks. So HVAC is really important in terms of how we function as human beings. Next, you look at certain regions that were just not suitable for a business or even living. You didn't want to live in certain areas if there wasn't air conditioning available. But it's been available for quite a while, right? And you look at how the housing industry really boomed in the Sun Belt area, went from about 28% to 40% because of air conditioning. So it had a big impact in that respect. You look at things related to technology now. You have internet, TV, server farms. Without climate controlled areas, those types of systems would fail. They would overheat, they would fail, and oh my goodness, where would we be without our internet, right? I think anyone below the age of 30 just wouldn't know what to do, right? A couple more fun facts for you. Air conditioning has had an effect on mortality rates during heat waves. When it's super hot outside and you can't get that relief, there's a spike in mortality rates. But because we have air conditioning, fortunately, we're able to control that better. And then hospitals, again, I'm somebody who's very sensitive to cold. So I find that places like movie theaters and hospitals are always so cold to me, right? And that's on purpose for many reasons, right? If you let the temperatures rise, then you're more prone to infections or contaminants and things that you don't want in a hospital type setting. So climate control is very important in those types of settings. And we could keep going with this list. There's so many different reasons and fun facts related to why HVAC is so important. We can sum it all up by saying our modern economy, it just wouldn't be what it is today without air conditioning. So when we say we're essential, there's a whole lot of information to back it up and prove why it is considered to be essential. All right, So let's break down the acronym. When you look at what HVAC is, it stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. But of course, often we see so much more focus on heating and air conditioning. And there's kind of a quick breeze over the ventilation part. So you have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, right? And it shouldn't be that way. We need to focus on all 4 letters. So we're gonna emphasize the ventilation side of it for just a second. Proper ventilation is absolutely critical. It is what brings air conditioning and heating to life. Without the duct system, air doesn't have the mode of travel. It doesn't have the highway to travel where it needs to be delivered, distributed. Proper ventilation it provides thorough circulation of the air, which should create a more balanced home in terms of comfort, healthier home in terms of air quality, and then of course efficient. It makes your home overall more efficient due to the way the system performs. And Jeff, I'd like to ask you to kind of chime in here, because when we talk about ventilation, I'm sure you have a lot to add on this topic. So please, if you would, chime in.
Absolutely. I love that we have the word proper underlined under the proper ventilation. So that's one of those things that our industry is very, very, we just overlook. We don't take the time to actually verify that, hey, we have the proper duct system, we have the proper ventilation occurring within a space, in a home, whatever it may be. So again, it is very, very critical, and I like that the proper is underlined on this here for us, because it is something that we as an industry need to get better at, and that we need to understand and do the right thing, and not just breeze by everything that's already in homes. So it's very critical.
Yep. And if I know a few things about you, you're not somebody who breezes through things. You do things the proper way. So that's why you're here today.
Yeah, we like to take our time to make sure that what we're doing is going to be the correct thing, because it's all about our client in the end.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay, so let's take a look at the different types of ductwork that are most common across the country. So you have ductboard. Ductboard tends to be more prevalent in the lower regions of the country, Georgia, Florida, kind of along the southern parts of the country. Panned-in, you've got flex duct, sheet metal. Sheet metal seems to be more prominent in the colder or the frost belt areas, but you can see a mixture in all parts of the country. And Jeff, I didn't originally plan on calling on you here, but if there's anything you want to add on this slide about the types of ductwork and how material has changed over time, or the impact that it plays, any comments you want to throw in here?
Yeah, one of the big things as well is flex always gets a bad rap, and I understand why. And it's just to make sure whatever we're installing out there, that we understand how to install it. It may seem simple, but there's proper ways to install everything that we see here.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so when we think about duct leakage, you know, it might seem like a small thing, but it can really lead to big issues in a home. Duct leakage forces a system to work harder than it would otherwise need to work. So it puts an additional burden on the HVAC equipment. The equipment has to work harder to compensate for the leakage. You know, the HVAC system is trying to keep up with whatever the thermostat is demanding. And if you have leakage, it's making it difficult to achieve the desired temperature. So it can put a burden on the equipment, and that increased burden over time, it can reduce the lifespan of that equipment. Let's take a look at some numbers. How does duct leakage start to add up, and what is the impact? So, you know, you look at how we measure duct leakage. We measure it in a volume unit called CFM, cubic feet per minute. And if we look at just 100 CFM of leakage, which I'm sure Jeff could chime in here and tell you, that's not a lot of leakage when you look at what's average. In most cases, we see homes with significantly more leakage than just 100 CFM. But let's just talk about 100 CFM for a second and what impact that plays. Just 100 CFM of leakage can create an additional 10 gallons of moisture in a duct system in a 24-hour cycle. And then you look at really high humidity markets like Florida, Texas, we're talking significantly more than 10 gallons. And Jeff, I don't know, can you think of an HVAC system that was designed to keep up with that much moisture?
Unless you oversize it, and unfortunately that happens too often as well. But no, not really. Sizing and all this becomes very, very important too.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that as well, because you're right. So let's talk about some of the standards that are out there. One of the most well-known or most common we have building codes, of course, for new construction, but for quality standards for new installation, there's a organization called ACA, and their standard is 6% leakage is allowed, and that's when the ductwork is outside the envelope. So if the ductwork is exposed, it's on the outside of the envelope, you're allowed to have up to 6% leakage. So what does that mean? If we look at a 3-ton system and we break down that math, a 3-ton system produces 1,200 CFM. So 6% of that would be 72 CFM is what would be allowed according to ACA standards. What is 72 CFM? What does that mean? Well, 72 CFM of leakage would be the equivalency of a 13 square inch hole. So just imagine how big that hole is. That's what 72 CFMs would be equivalent to. So you start thinking about what other elements are true, and that would be you've got mechanical pressure. So you've got this giant fan on your HVAC system that's blowing air and it's creating additional pressure, right? So now you've got if you took a 1 square inch hole, the impact once you add that mechanical pressure into the equation, it's like a 30 square inch hole. So you can see how something very small starts to become very big. Hopefully that'll make sense. Let's take a look at an illustration here to see if this kind of helps make a little bit better sense. So we just said that, we just said that 1 square inch is like the equivalency of a 13 square inch hole. So imagine you have a window and you leave it open 13 inches. You just leave it open. While your HVAC system is running, right? That would be the impact that just 1 square inch of duct leakage can have. I don't know about you guys, but the way I was raised, we don't leave doors open while the AC is running, right? I can hear my dad yelling at me, or even the refrigerator. You can't leave that open. But just that little amount of leakage, it would be like leaving a window open 13 inches. That's crazy. Here's the thing though, most homes on average, they have a lot more than just 1 square inch. It's more like 50 square inches of leakage on average that we see. So that's more like, imagine you have 5 windows open, 10 inches, and this stuff starts to add up really quickly. Jeff, anything you want to add here?
It's a lot of humidity to overcome in the middle of summer in humid climates, Tracy.
Heck yeah, it is. Yeah. And we don't really have a slide to talk about that issue, but humidity, I think it's what makes all the difference, right? We talk about Arizona, for example. It's a dry heat, so it's not as bad. And we kind of laugh about it, but it's true, of course, because the air is less humid. So when it's less humid, we're more tolerant to those higher temperatures. But in places like our market, Jeff, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, we have a lot of humidity, so we're much more sensitive to those temperatures. 80 degrees here feels a lot different than 80 degrees out west, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Okay, so let's dig into the art of duct sealing. It's exactly what it sounds like. We find the leaks, the holes, the gaps, the cracks, and we seal them up. And we seal up those points in the duct system where the air is escaping. And of course, we've already talked about all the ways that can impact the comfort, air quality, system performance. But just take a look at some of these pictures here. Take sheet metal, for example. You have so many metal on metal connections that you have dozens of points where the duct system can be prone to leaking. And actually, Jeff, I think we were talking recently, and you actually have a number on, you have some stats on the average number of connections that are in an average duct system. Would you share that with everybody?
Yeah, the average, and this is from multiple sources and stuff, Department of Energy and other research done, but the average 3-ton system does have 50 to 80 connection points. And on each of those connections, they were tested to leak up to 0.5%. So that's a lot of little leaks that add up to a lot, especially when we have that many different connections in a duct system.
Yeah. So you take that, what Jeff's sharing, you look at some of these pictures on the screen, and I think the point we're trying to make is duct leakage can be all over the place, right? And you don't have to look hard to find some evidence of leakage in a system. You might not be able to see all of the ductwork, but when you have some that's exposed, usually you can find some evidence of leakage points.
And on some of those pictures, Tracy, just kind of to bring it to everyone's attention as well, is if you actually start to look at those cleats, those joints, those connections, those drives, you'll actually start to see a dusting pattern. And that dusting pattern is a very evident sign of leakage and how that's getting infiltrated into the system as well.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about air quality here in just a couple slides. So yeah, that's a great point. So I mentioned building codes earlier. So let's talk about those for a little bit. Building codes are continuing to become more stringent, and they're really driving the demand for duct sealing. So if you look at the timeline there from 2009 and on, you can see how it's become more and more stringent. And what we're seeing in a lot of markets right now is 4 CFM of leakage is permitted per 100 square feet of conditioned space. And that is not a lot of leakage that's allowable in new construction. So we're starting to see a lot of markets where those codes are present. The need for duct sealing options like Aeroseal are becoming much more in demand because it's tough to achieve that kind of tightness requirement. And we're starting also to see some of these codes apply to new system replacements. So I've heard some dealers across the country say, well, we don't have to worry about building codes. And I understand, I hear, I respect that. I would just add to the end of that sentence, yet, because I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's just a matter of when. So if your market does not have duct leakage requirements that are difficult for you to achieve, I bet it's coming pretty soon. And most dealers tell us that 4 CFM per 100 square feet is tough to achieve. Jeff, how about your market?
Yeah, I think at least currently it's 6 CFM. It was up to 12 CFM for retrofit homes. So for existing homes post-construction, 12 CFM per 100 square feet, which, you know, it's still a lot of leakage, but yeah, it's trending downward as it should.
Yep, good. A little bit more on the codes here. So until 2009, there really wasn't a lot of code enforcement. I don't say a lot, there really wasn't any code enforcement for duct sealing. So what that means is, homes that were built prior to 2009, if the code didn't force you to seal the ductwork, guess what? It probably wasn't sealed then, right? We don't have to do it. We probably aren't going to do it. That's not to say that it wasn't done anywhere. Maybe somebody sealed it, but if we don't have to do it, often it doesn't get done. So you look at these two bullet points. Research from 2016 study estimates that 96% of owner-occupied homes that were built in 2009 or prior, it said that 96% of the owner-occupied homes were built before 2009 or prior. So what does that equal in terms of the number of homes? We're talking about 115 million homes that are impacted. So what does that mean? That means there are 115 million homes out there that probably didn't get their ductwork sealed that could have a need for duct sealing. Why do they have a need? Because they might not be comfortable. They might not have the air quality that they want in their home. They might not be getting the system performance out of their HVAC system that they would like to see. And many other reasons. Humidity control that we just talked about could be another reason why they would have a need for duct sealing. So there's no shortage of a need out there in the marketplace. All right, so here we go. You heard Jeff say it earlier, and I'm going to have him come back to the point that he made a little bit earlier. But it is so important that we properly size equipment when we're installing new equipment. And you take a look at this graph or this table that we have on the screen. This data came from the Department of Energy, and it was a study conducted on efficiency drains, or how SEER, the efficiency rating of equipment, and AFUE can be degraded when duct leakage is present. So there's a lot of different ways you can explain this. I'll try to just keep it simple for a minute, and then I'm going to let the expert, Jeff, chime in and explain it in a little bit more detail. We know that most duct systems leak somewhere between 25 and 40%. So if we were to look at the impact of 30% leakage, that's pretty average. That's pretty middle of the road. So you take a 16 SEER system with 30% leakage, and you can see the impact of that is now that 16 SEER system is only able to deliver the efficiency of an 8 SEER system. And you can rephrase that and say that a different way. Let me tell you what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that the 16 SEER system components aren't operating efficiently, but it's not just the components. The system has to deliver air to the home. And if it's not, due to duct leakage, there's a good chance the homeowner is cranking that thermostat up, right? So now the system has to work harder. Plus you have the leakage in the duct system. The equipment has to work harder to compensate for that leakage. So now we're overburdening the equipment, and it's not going to operate as efficiently as it would if there was no duct leakage. By the way, the ratings that are labeled on equipment are based on perfect conditions. So in a perfect condition, in a duct system with 0 leakage, the equipment operates as it's labeled. But we are never hooking up equipment to perfect conditions. It's never perfect, right? So there's almost always some amount of duct leakage in the system. Jeff, if you would, please add a little bit to this. And I see that we have a question, so I'm going to check that out while you're talking.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that always comes up when this chart is shown, and it's on different websites and areas that you can locate it, especially the Department of Energy's researching portion, is this chart is showing when it's to outside of the conditioned space. So we're talking attics, we're talking crawl spaces, we're talking those places. So that always gets brought up. So I like to just let's start with it. Okay, there are many homes where they're in attics, they're in crawl spaces. Now, what happens when it leaks inside of a home is a different thing, and that can throw balance off, that can throw air quality off, that can throw comfort off. So, but again, going back to the chart, with many systems that are in attics, duct systems in attics and things like that, especially when returns are in attics, the system does have to run longer. It works harder. It is, you know, I was at a home yesterday where a newer system, not even a year old, is hard to keep up at 75 degrees when it gets above 80 outside. Well, why? Well, leakage from the attic pulling in all that warm air was part of it. So the system, yes, as I was checking the numbers, is working as it's intended, but actually what the homeowner was getting back in return was a lot less. So, you know, especially with comfort and again, the efficiency, it shouldn't have to run like that system was running.
Yep. And I think it was you, I may have heard somebody say this, I think it was you, that this concept is kind of like, you wouldn't give somebody a heart transplant if they had bad veins and arteries, right?
Yes.
Right?
100%.
Was that you?
Yeah, I mean, it's like blood pressure when we're talking about the system. So you have to look at the whole thing again to make sure that it's what it's supposed to be. But yes, that was part of it. I phrased it a different way, and I'll mention that a little bit later.
Okay, all right. I botched it. I'm sorry.
Fine.
But yeah, we have to think about the ductwork that we're attaching this brand new equipment to. It is absolutely part of the equation, and the fix is not just putting in a bigger system. That's a bad idea for all kinds of reasons. So we want to properly size it, and then once we install it, we want to make sure that it delivers the efficiency that it was designed to deliver. And the only way we can do that is by ensuring that the duct system that it's connected to is sealed up so it can properly distribute the air where it's supposed to go. I mean, I think it's about that simple, right, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's good to always check what we're connecting it to before we install the system, because it's not always the fun conversation to have after we install the system.
Oh, that's definitely not a good time or a fun conversation. That's a bad time to have that one. Yeah. Yep. So, all right. So back to, you know, duct sealing is essential. Duct sealing can help you as a business owner, service provider. It can help you deliver greater comfort to your customers and help create healthier homes for your customers. You look at what HVAC is, a closed loop system, completely closed, as in sealed. It reduces contaminants and allergens being introduced into the indoor living space, right? Proper duct sealing provides proper filtration of the indoor air. And we all know this because we've heard this many, many times, but indoor air can be 2 to 5 times more polluted than outdoor air. That's bananas, right? The verdict is still out on the airborne impact of COVID and how it plays a part in this conversation that we're having today. You know, HVAC, duct sealing, verdict is still out, and we want to be real cautious about what kind of comments, claims that we make related to that. Jeff, how about you guys? What are you seeing in your marketplace as related to the information that we have here?
The indoor air being typically worse than outdoors, you do have to be careful because it depends on where you are, of course, and what's surrounding you. So we want to be careful even when we're talking to homeowners about that, because you don't want to make false claims. You definitely want the facts, but we do know based off of some things with COVID that 2 of the biggest the helpful things, okay, that we can take as our resources and share with homeowners is filtration and ventilation. So ventilation goes from not only the duct system, but also fresh air, even into a home, especially on any home built in the last 30, 40 years, because as we're talking about tightening up duct systems, they've also tightened up homes. So one of those things that you definitely want to be aware of as well.
Oh, yep, that's a good point. Okay. All right, let's dive into some of the ways you can seal ductwork. There are three main ways, or three of the most common ways to seal ductwork that we see in the marketplace. You have foil tape, you have mastic, and then of course you have Aeroseal. So let's break each one of them down in a little bit more detail. And this is not all inclusive, but these are some of the most common pros and cons that we see with each of the different methods that are available. So if we look at foil tape, it's inexpensive. It's not super expensive. It's fairly easy to apply. It's not messy. It does seal large gaps. It can work as a clamping agent, and generally, you only need one technician to do a foil tape job. And once you complete the foil taping, you can operate your HVAC system immediately afterwards. There's no wait period. Some of the cons related to foil taping, you can only tape what you can reach. So access could be an issue. If you can't reach it, you're not going to be able to tape it. When you can reach it, though, sometimes it's going to require that you got to crawl around in an attic or a crawl space so you can get to the area that you need to tape. So you're going to have to climb up some ladders, climb down into small spaces. Having a clean surface area is also very important. You're putting the tape on, you want to make sure that whatever you're taping is a clean surface. So that can add a little bit of time if you have to take the time to clean that duct surface. And then over time, foil tape can become brittle. The adhesive, it doesn't, the longevity of the adhesive out of the three choices that we showed you, it's the shortest. Foil tape doesn't last as long as the other two options that we talked about. Also, it can tear easily, relatively easily. And in this case, you would need to seal and then test to verify how tight the duct system is. So let's take a look at mastic. Mastic, it's cost effective. Again, it's not, it's cost effective. We'll just leave it at that. You don't have to worry about a clean surface area with mastic. You can apply it or paint it right on, even if the surface area is dusty, dirty. And again, you only need one technician to do a mastic job. You can do two, but you only have to have the one. Some cons, it's a little bit messy. Again, same as before, you can only mastic, you can only seal what you can reach. So if you can't reach it, you can't seal it. Same as before, you're gonna have to crawl around the attic, the crawl space, up and down ladders. Now, in the case of mastic, if you have a gap or a hole that is larger than 1/8 of an inch, you're gonna have to use a mesh covering before you mastic it. You might have to apply several coats or multiple layers of mastic. It can be time consuming, it's a timely process. Again, mastic can become brittle when it dries, it becomes hard and it becomes brittle over time. I apologize. There's no limit as far as sealing over fasteners. No issue with that, you can seal over fasteners. But that can cause an issue in the future if you need to get in there and modify something. I'm so sorry. This is the joy of working from home, right? I think the mailman came and the dog is barking. So sorry. So when you mastic and you cover up those fasteners, that can create an issue in the future. Another downside with mastic is you do have to wait 24 hours before you can operate the system while the mastic dries. And then same as the foil tape, with mastic, you have to seal and then you have to verify the duct tightness afterwards, okay? So if we look at Aeroseal, one of the biggest pros that Aeroseal offers is, we've talked a lot about you can only seal what you can reach. Aeroseal does not have that limitation. because you can seal the ductwork from the inside, it's able to reach every gap, hole, crack, leak with no limitations. It is an automated process, or maybe a better way to say that, it's a computer controlled process. So you can monitor the progress of the job with the computer controlled software, right? It is very precise. Because it's precise, and because you have the computer monitoring or kind of guiding you through the process, there's less labor involved in a big sense. What I mean by that is there's no guessing. You know what's happening. You know how the job is progressing, so you don't have to guess if you're getting it tight enough. I think that's what we mean when we say that. Aeroseal is able to seal up to 5/8 of an inch. As I said before, you get real-time tracking results, you get guaranteed results, and you can turn on the HVAC system immediately after doing an Aeroseal duct sealing job. Now, some of the cons related to Aeroseal, sealing from the inside, just like when we talked about having a clean surface area for the outside, sometimes you're going to need to clean the ducts from, on the inside of the ductwork before you seal. Yeah, you don't want to complete a seal with dirty ductwork. There is a lot of prep work involved with Aeroseal, and we recommend a 2-man crew. So with foil and mastic, you could probably get away with a 1-man crew. With Aeroseal, we're always going to recommend that you have 2 technicians running the job. All right, so no matter how you're sealing ductwork, there's a big opportunity. I think there's no question in the amount of opportunity that's out there related to duct sealing. For homeowners, it gives them added confidence and increased satisfaction. Now their HVAC system is operating the way it's supposed to, the way it was designed to operate. They're going to have more cost-effective overall system. Their system is working and operating the way it should, so it's more efficient, so their utility costs should be better. The home is going to be more comfortable. That's good. Homeowners love that. And then on top of that, the indoor air is going to be improved. You're going to have healthier indoor air when you seal up ductwork. If we look at the advantage for contractors, business owners, there's a significant revenue opportunity and growth potential related to duct sealing. You're already in the home. You're already there for whatever reason, be it maintenance, service, repair, replacement, or any of the other services that your company provides. The next step is educating the homeowner that there's a solution that they may not have considered before, that this solution, this duct sealing solution, can solve so many problems that they may have been dealing with, right? And then anytime you add additional services to your tickets, you see higher ticket values, higher profit margins. And having that additional revenue stream related to duct sealing, the good thing about that is it doesn't matter if it's hot or cold outside. We don't have to wait for things to get hot or cold to sell duct sealing. You need duct sealing every day of the year. So it's not weather dependent or driven by weather. You definitely put more attention on it during those hot and cold times, but it's not dependent upon temperature. And then duct sealing, it is definitely a way to differentiate yourself. You can be known as the guy who provides comprehensive, more complete, total home solutions. And that sets you apart from your competition. And there's a lot of competition when it comes to HVAC. So this is a way that you can be different than the others. And on top of that, you're going to find that your homeowners are so much more satisfied. You don't get as many callbacks. And Jeff can chime in because I know he's probably got a lot to add to this slide. So Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, the differentiation portion for contractors is that, as what you were kind of leading to earlier was, we do have to look at the ventilation, we have to look at the ducting. in the ductwork, especially prior to sealing. So you get to bake the cake before you add the icing, and Aeroseal is that icing on the cake. So once you actually give them solutions on the equipment, the ducting, modifications, whatever we need to get the system under control, and then once it's under control, add that icing on top of the cake to then ensure those efficiencies and the operation, the longevity, and everything that we're talking about up front and saying that we're going to do. This is the way that actually gets you there, is sealing and proper size equipment and ducting.
Yep. I've talked to contractors about things like just something as simple as going out on a maintenance call and observing that the homeowner has a dirty filter, furnace filter in their system. And I've asked, well, would you do anything about that? And the contractor says, well, of course I would, absolutely. I would change that filter. And I say, yeah, why? Why would you change it? And I often get comments like, well, it can restrict airflow. A dirty filter could lead to dirty air. And the mindset is often, well, I have to do that. Of course I'm going to change that. Why wouldn't I? It's a necessary repair. And we say that duct sealing, in many ways, should be considered the same thing. It is a necessary repair to the system. I don't really put duct sealing in the category of a service, an IAQ service that you can provide. It's a repair, in my view. It's something that you should do, must do. It's necessary for the overall system to work the way it was designed to. But that's a pretty bold approach, I guess, right? What would you say to that, Jeff?
I would agree. I mean, if we're saying that these systems are going to do what we're telling as we're putting them in, sealing it and checking the ductwork is very, very important. And it's only becoming more and more important, especially with the new Department of Energy guideline that was passed last year, July 3rd of 2019, with these new type of motors. All of this is very important to check out. And sealing it is a repair. It's not just the add-on. It's not just the IAQ portion. It should be done with every job that you do, or at least recommended.
There you go. And I think that's key, what you just said. Would we like to see it with every job? Sure, that'd be great. But at a minimum, at least mention it. At least educate the homeowner so they know the importance of it, and then let your homeowner decide. But informing, educating them, telling them about it, that's at a minimum, it should be talked about. So I love the way you said that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that come back after we've done installs that go, well, hey, no one's educated me on it. No one's mentioned it, and we don't want to hear that. We want them to know at least that they've been educated enough to that point to make that decision themselves.
Yep. So, kind of summarize everything that we've talked about today. When you look at duct sealing as a, whatever you want to call it, a service, a repair, something that your company can do for your customers, it improves customer satisfaction. There's really, I'll say no other, because I can't think of any other service that delivers as many benefits in one single solution as duct sealing does. So with duct sealing, you can deliver to your customers improved comfort, better humidity control, better air quality, better energy efficiency, and equipment longevity. That's a very big value statement, right? That's a whole lot of benefits packed into one little service or repair, or again, whatever you want to call it. So it packs a big punch. This takes us up to questions. So we will open it up for any questions that you guys have, and you can use the chat function on your GoToWebinar menu and send us any questions that you have. And let me see what we have here so far. Okay, so we have it's more of a comment than it is a question. And the comment is, don't forget about UV protection. And I'm not the expert, but I'll say a quick statement, and then I'm going to let Jeff talk about that. I want to be very careful. We're not trying to say, oh, don't do those other things like UV lights. We're saying these things all work together very well. They're complementary. No matter how you're sealing ductwork, whether it's tape, mastic, or Aeroseal, installing UV lights along with duct sealing is a great thing to do. Jeff, chime in here and how would you address that comment? Don't forget about UV protection.
Yeah, absolutely. It's UVs. It's upgrading filtration to certain MERV ratings. Obviously, making sure that we have the proper pressure, your static pressure. I like calling it duct pressure. Okay, I like knowing the proper duct pressure going across. How much air is running across those UVs? Yes, they change so many times over that UV to do the right thing. What kind of UV are we using? But like I said, air purification, filtration, UVs, ventilators if needed, such as energy recovery ventilators or heating recovery ventilators if needed, again. But prior to all that, or in conjunction with it, as you said, Tracy, is making sure that the system is sealed up in those unconditioned spaces. They work together, and they work together very, very well.
Yep, very good. Thank you. Next question we have here is, how long does it take to duct seal an average home with a 2-man crew? So Nathan, thank you for that question. Again, I'll kind of start the answer and I'll let Jeff give you more real world information about that. When we say average home, kind of depends on what market you're in, but on average, for homes, say around 2,000 square feet, on average, we see somewhere between 4 to 6 hours for a typical Aeroseal job. Now, there are so many factors that can plus or minus that. And the complexity of the home that can make it take a little bit longer are things like access to the air handler, access to all the supplies and returns in the home, the amount of leakage in the duct system. Those are some of the factors that can increase the time it takes. But why don't we let the expert who's out there doing it every day, why don't we let Jeff give you some real world information?
Yeah, that's a great question. We'd ask that quite often, especially from our homeowners and stuff. It depends on the size of the home. As Tracy said, all those other things do add to it as well. Can we access it? What do we have to do to get to them? Do we need extension ladders? So on and so forth. But I would say it is a good day's work. We like to clean it before we actually seal. It's just part of our service, part of what we do. We recommend doing it prior. Do you have to? No, but again, it's a recommendation. So I would say a good 6 to 10 hours to clean and seal an average size home.
There you go. Okay, thank you. And you guys, now when you clean and seal, Jeff, are you running 2 separate crews, or do you have one crew that does both your cleaning and your sealing?
One crew that does both cleaning and sealing in most cases, and it's a similar process when we're talking about blocking and getting ready for duct cleaning. It's the same thing or a similar process when we're doing it for sealing as well. So it makes sense to do them back to back.
There you go. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so kind of a follow-up comment to the UV light comment that we had a second ago. James, thank you, James. James is saying, don't forget, UV kills viruses. I understand, yes. And I think that's the point that Jeff was making. They work well together, the idea of duct sealing and a UV light. But really, again, Jeff, this is your area of expertise, so please.
Absolutely. There are a lot of claims out there, and they do kill viruses, again, more so in a contained environment. It depends on how many air exchanges you have that go across UVs and other devices. So again, huge fan and proponent of the right UV in the right situation, coupled with, again, sealing as well on top of it. So if you didn't seal and you wanted to do UVs, okay, I have no problem with that either. Again, one of the big things that I will say is prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. Make sure we're offering the right solution to the right homeowner at the right time to take care of whatever concerns they have.
I love it. Say it again. I'm teasing. Okay, so another comment from James. I'm going to read it as he wrote it, and then I'll respond. James is saying that if you want to plug COVID, duct sealing is a minimal issue, and you know, I respect your comment, and I would just offer, I see it a little bit differently. It depends on what you mean by it being a minimal issue. We have been very, very mindful, careful about not making a direct promise that duct sealing can protect you from COVID. We do not say that. We will not say that. We don't know enough. So that is not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is we are stuck in our homes. And I can tell you, when we're in our homes, we find things. I've been staring at a wall that I hate, so I painted it because I was tired of looking at it. There's one example. But I'm talking to homeowners every day who are telling me, man, I had no idea my house was so uncomfortable. I had one customer tell me that their upstairs floor was 20 degrees hotter than their first floor. So they had a basement, first floor, second floor, 20-degree differential in the temperature. And the homeowner was like, you know, I mean, I knew it was hotter up there, but wow, I had no idea. When you say it's a minimal issue, the reason I think it is a huge issue is this guy is stuck in his house now because he's worked from home. And now that 20-degree difference in temperature is becoming something that he doesn't want to put up with. So in that specific case, duct sealing is a big deal. And he wants it. He wants it fixed. He wants it solved. He could put a fan upstairs, but that's just a Band-Aid. Let's seal up that ductwork and see if we improve overall airflow. That's going to make a big deal for that guy, right? Jeff, I don't know if there's anything you would add to, again, we're not making promises or guarantees about COVID and duct sealing. We won't do that. But I think in terms of comfort, yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and then I understand where he's coming from too, because yeah, we're not saying that we don't want to get involved with it. It's an ever-changing virus of what's going on. So all we're doing is trying to make, you know, again, that prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. Of statement I made earlier is, let's give the right solution to the right person. We're not going to go in and just blindly say that they need everything. So we're going to go in and do the right thing, do our measurements, do our numbers, get the information, and then make those recommendations from there. Now, I can say with kids going back to school and they're saying that it's staying in the air and things like that longer, if you have, you know, a classroom next to another classroom and they're using the same distribution system and it's leaky, what kind of chances do we have? Why even take that chance, especially when we're talking about efficiency, comfort, and then also anything else that it can help protect against? It's just one of those things that go along with all the other things that we've talked about and that we know that's out there.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, and I didn't think of that. So thank you. Jeff, we have a question from Brad. Brad wants to know if you have experience with whole house sealing, and I think he means envelope sealing, or just duct sealing. And I know that you do, so I'm gonna let you answer that because I know that's something that's near and dear to you.
Absolutely. So with that, we do. If you're talking about whole envelope sealing, whole home sealing, new construction wise or complete remodel and regut wise, Aero Barrier is like no other. So that's something else to throw out there to just check out. Even though we don't do it because we don't do as many new construction, but I do blower door tests. I like to, with I've got my certifications, thermography license, things like that. So we actually want to go through and make sure that what we're recommending of sealing is right. So yes, the whole house, we do want to look at those infiltration points or exfiltration points as well to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Plus, also when you're talking about sizing, that's should be mandated, but that's never going to happen in our industry, unfortunately.
Yeah. So Brad, you heard Jeff mention our other technology is called Aero Barrier, and it is a whole home envelope sealing technology. Today, we're really talking more about duct sealing, but yes, if you're interested in more information, do visit our website and check out Aero Barrier. Compatibility with different spray foam products. I tell you what, Brad, here's what we'll do. I can have, yep, I see your follow-up. I can have one of our team members from Aero Barrier. I can have them reach out to you and answer your detailed questions. Yep, you're welcome. Happy to do so. So I know we're right up on the end of our time, so let's do this. I want to give Jeff an opportunity, if I can find my slides here. Here we go. I want to give Jeff an opportunity to just kind of summarize everything that we've talked about today and give you some closing words, and then I'll let you guys know what next steps are.
Absolutely. Again, I'll repeat it one more time because I am a firm believer in it, is that prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. We as an industry need to be better. We need to educate ourselves, learn, and help each other out, not take anybody else down or badmouth anybody, but be there for each other. And let's actually take it further in knowing what we're doing and being the professional and educator out in homes, and just do the right thing.
I love it. Very good. Okie doke. So next steps are this. We're going to do a second, kind of a part 2 on this discussion where we get a little bit more detailed. And that that webinar will be on September 10th. And if you're interested in a free business review or to see how Aeroseal pairs with your company and your services, you can reach out to Jared Scott. His contact information is on the screen there. If there are future topics that you would like to see us present on, do please email us at info@aeroseal.com, and we'll be happy to put together any topics that do make sense. And then just for everyone's information, today's webinar has been recorded, and the recording will be available in a couple hours. So if you registered, or if you have colleagues who registered, they will automatically receive a copy of the recording. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. I know it's busy times, so I appreciate the time that you took to join us. And thank you all so much. And thank you, Jeff. Jeff, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
without you.
Thanks.
All right. Take care, everybody.